This is Joe Biden, the President of the United States. Now, everyone knows that Joe Biden is a human gaffe machine, and since he took office back in January 2021, Biden has made bloopers, blunders, and gaffes on the daily. Here's some examples.
And so I was sort of raised in the Puerto Rican community at home. More than half the women in my cabinet, more than half the people in my cabinet, more than half the women in my administration are women. We have 1,000 billionaires in America. You know the average tax rate they pay? 8, E-I-G-H%. 8%. I hibernated in a while, Iowa for a while, but if I can digress for just a second. Last night I was on television. I was on the telephone. And she was forced to have to travel out of the state to Indiana to seek to terminate the presidency and maybe save her life. That's last part is my judgment. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to,
Anyway, 3 years after he took office, it's time for an updated ranking of all the strange verbal gaffes, policy blunders, terrible optics, and a ton of just straight up lies that Biden has told since he took office. So here's the top 30 of his residency so far. Coming in at number 30 is the fact that Joe Biden thinks that exponentially is a word.
The price goes up exponentially, like for cars. They have an exponentially greater chance of going all the way through 12 years of school. It increases exponentially their prospect of graduating. It also increases exponentially. We increase exponentially. They're changing exponentially. They increase exponentially, which is increased exponentially. Increasing exponentially. Prices went up exponentially. And it's increasing exponentially.
Back in the summer of 2023, Face the Nation did a segment about AI-generated deepfake video. Here's AI expert Lindsay Gorman showing host Margaret Brennan a potentially fake video of Joe Biden.
Yeah, so here's President Biden. All right, this one I'm going to ask you about.
You can't be pro-insurrection and pro-cop. You can't be pro-insurrection and pro-democracy. You can't be pro-insurrection and pro-American. Donald Trump lacked the courage to act. The brave women and men in blue all across this nation should never forget that.
So what did you think of this one?
He didn't blink.
Not at all, right?
So that suggests it's fake.
This one's actually real.
How's that?
This was actually a speech he gave.
That's right, Margaret. It's f***ing real. And it's number 29 on the list. The original video from July 2022 is an 11-minute long pre-recorded address to the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. In it, Joe Biden doesn't blink for long stretches of time, including this portion where he doesn't blink for an entire minute. In fact, during the entire 11-minute and 14-second video, Joe Biden is only seen blinking a total of 40 times. And as stated earlier, the speech wasn't shot in one take. Let's watch Biden's eyes between cuts in the video.
All of these steps will reduce crime and prevent crime from happening in the first place. And
Joe Biden makes a lot of claims about his past, but there's one in particular that might be the most dubious.
And let's lay one thing to rest. I may be a practicing Catholic. I used to go to 7:30 Mass every morning in high school and then in college before I went to the black church. Not a joke.
Yeah, whenever Joe Biden says not a joke, that means he's lying. Joe Biden tends to get away with most of the claims he makes about his childhood, largely because no one he knew at the time is alive to dispute what he said. But number 28 on the list proves that Joe Biden never went to the black church, like ever, because if he had, he'd know how to act at one. On September 19, 2021, during a massive surge of illegal crossings at the southern border, a photographer captured several images of migrants being confronted by United States Border Patrol agents on horseback. And these images ripped through social media, where many accused the border agents of whipping migrants. But in an interview with KTSM El Paso, the photographer Paul Ratchie said, "I've never seen them whip anyone, but it can be misconstrued when you're looking at the picture." And that should have been the end of it. But we are talking about Joe Biden and his garbage administration, so coming in at number 27 is when Joe Biden perpetuated a lie to demonize his own border agents in an attempt to distract from the border crisis that he himself is responsible for.
But it was horrible what to see, as you saw. To see people treated like they did, horses barely running them over, people being strapped, it's outrageous. I promise you those people will pay.
So despite the fact that the photographer said the day before that there was no whipping, and despite being zero proof of whipping, Joe Biden said that the border agents were guilty of whipping migrants.
There will be an investigation underway now, and there will be consequences. There will be consequences. It's an embarrassment, but it's beyond an embarrassment. It's dangerous. It's wrong. It sends the wrong message around the world. It sends the wrong message at home. It's simply not who we are.
No, what sends the wrong message is accusing one of your own agencies of wrongdoing even after it was debunked and without any due process. In fact, a 9-month investigation and a 511-page report by the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Professional Responsibility found that the horses involved in this incident were equipped with split reins, which can be twirled by the rider to guide the horse's movements. There is no evidence that Border Patrol agents involved in this incident struck intentionally or otherwise any migrant with their reins. Yeah, no shit. So in response to the report's findings, Joe Biden held a press conference and apologized for jumping to conclusions. I'm kidding, of course. That would require integrity. And speaking of a lack of integrity or honesty or self-awareness, here's number 26.
I've said in the past, I'm a capitalist. I have no problem with people making as much money as they are capable of making. But I'm asking you one simple question. Just pay your fair share. Pay your fair share, that's all. That's it. Just your fair share. Pay your taxes. I think you should be able to be a trillionaire, a billionaire, a zillionaire if you want, but pay your taxes for God's sake. I said I was going to do everything I could to make sure they start paying their fair share. Republicans may not like it, but I'm going to make sure the wealthy pay their fair share. And right now, many of them are paying virtually nothing. And go after tax cheats and make sure everybody's paying their fair share.
Joe Biden lectures you about your taxes, but in the meantime, it's his deadbeat son Hunter who's been indicted on 9 tax charges, including tax evasion.
But all I'm asking is, pay your fair share. Pay your fair share. Pay your fair share.
Yeah, tell that to your tax cheat son, you creep. Anyway, coming in at number 25 is this moment on July 2021, where Joe Biden was asked a question amid the noise of Marine One.
Does immigration need to be in reconciliation? Must it be in reconciliation?
What must be what?
Now, it's unclear exactly what Biden said, but it sure sounds like he said,
What must be what?
and even though there's 1,000 things that you could fact check Joe Biden on, the news agency Reuters decided that this took priority. A video of Joe Biden responding to a reporter has gone viral on social media, with some users claiming he said, "My butt's been wiped." While his complete phrase is not entirely clear, Reuters was able to confirm that Biden did not say the words that have been attributed to him on social media posts. So they don't know exactly what Joe Biden said, but they're certain that it's not what you think it is, which means it probably is what you think it is.
What must be what?
And at number 24, Joe Biden visited a Volvo manufacturing plant in Hagerstown, Maryland, and at the beginning of his remarks, well, it became a defining moment of his residency.
Let me start off with 2 words. Made in America. Made in America.
81 million votes, guys. And as a bonus, it really shows how brainless Joe Biden supporters can be because they just kept clapping.
Made in America. And that's not hyperbole. I'm not joking about that, as you know.
And when Congresswoman Lauren Boebert tweeted 2 words, "Let's go Brandon," clearly a reference to Joe Biden's flub, thousands of people took to social media to call her dumb, a friggin' moron, and an idiot. And by doing so, they were inadvertently insulting Joe Biden. Great job, geniuses.
2 words. Made in America.
Number 23 is that time Joe Biden blamed a non-existent weather phenomena on a non-existent health issue.
I grew up in a place called Claymont, Delaware, which has more oil refineries than Houston, Texas had in its region, just across the line in Pennsylvania. And all the prevailing winds were our way. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? It had to put on their windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window.
So for clarity, Joe Biden claims that prevailing winds blew oil from oil refineries onto his family's car windshield. And for some reason, this was only noticeable in the fall and winter. Right.
That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer.
And this was shocking because when the president of the United States says that he has cancer, it's kind of a big deal. And the Republican National Committee was quick to tweet about it, asking, "Did Joe Biden just announce he has cancer?" And the Washington Post's fact checker responded by saying, "How dumb is this tweet? Check out Biden's medical report. Before he became president, he had non-melanoma skin cancers removed. Has no one at the RNC ever had this common procedure? However, skin cancer is caused by the sun and not from oil that magically blows through the air." And keep in mind that Joe Biden didn't say, "I had cancer." He said, "I have cancer."
That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer.
But Glenn Kessler's tweet is proof that his job is less about fact-checking and more about protecting Democrats. But you knew that already. Next is number 22, when Joe Biden attended a Martin Luther King Day breakfast back in January 2023.
It was an honor to spend King Holiday with the National Action Network and with the King family, Martin and family. And understand, Martin III, we celebrate a legacy of your beloved father and mother. But congratulations today, the honorees, including your wife, who I understand is birthday today?
So this is Martin Luther King III and his wife, Andrea. And you may have noticed that Joe Biden didn't say Andrea's name. He only referred to her as Martin's wife. And spoiler alert, that's because Joe Biden doesn't know her name.
Well, look, my wife has a rule in her family. When somebody's birthday, you sing happy birthday. You ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Valen. Happy birthday to you.
And this was classic Joe Biden. He insisted on singing happy birthday to a woman whose name that he either forgot or never knew in the first place.
Happy birthday, dear Valen.
Number 21 can be defined in a single word.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping.
So during an event celebrating the first African-American woman confirmed to the Supreme Court, not to mention the first not being able to define what a woman is, Biden decided to make it about himself.
Traveling with him, I guess we traveled 17,000 miles when I was vice president. I don't know that for a fact.
So Biden claims that he actually traveled 17,000 miles with Xi Jinping, but then immediately says, "I don't know that for a fact." But he should know that it's not true, considering that the Washington Post has fact-checked him repeatedly on the matter and deemed Biden's claims to be 3 Pinocchio-worthy.
I was in the
And at number 20 is when Scott Pelley of 60 Minutes asked Joe Biden about the elephant in the room.
You are the oldest president ever.
Pretty good shape, huh?
Some people ask whether you are fit for the job. And when you hear that, I wonder what you think.
Watch me. I mean, honest to God, that's all I think. Watch me.
45 seconds later.
How would you say your mental focus is?
Oh, it's focused. I haven't, look.
I don't know who is running the country, but it is not Joe Biden.
Watch me.
On July 4th, 2021, the 7-day average of COVID cases had dropped nearly 375% since April, and Joe Biden stood on the south lawn of the White House to celebrate.
This year, the 4th of July is a day of special celebration. While the virus hasn't been vanquished, we know this: it no longer controls our lives.
And this turned out to be his mission accomplished moment, because 2 months later, cases were rising exponentially. So number 19 is when a desperate Joe Biden went on national television to tell you that you were going to get vaccinated whether you wanted to or not.
I want to emphasize that the vaccines provide very strong protection from severe illness from COVID-19. That if you are fully vaccinated, your risk of severe illness from COVID-19 is very low. Recent data indicates there is only one confirmed positive case per 5,000 fully vaccinated Americans per day. For the vast majority of you who have gotten vaccinated, I understand your anger at those who haven't gotten vaccinated.
So on one hand, Joe Biden was saying that if you were vaccinated, that you didn't have to worry. Breakthrough cases were rare. Not that that was actually true or anything. But at the same time, he's saying that he understands why the vaccinated are angry at the unvaccinated. But that's like you walking away from a car accident and then complaining that the other driver wasn't wearing their seatbelt.
My message to unvaccinated Americans is this: we've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us.
So Biden had proclaimed that the virus no longer controlled our lives. But months later, he was blaming the unvaccinated for getting the vaccinated sick. And in a last-ditch effort, Biden decided to break the law.
My job as president is to protect all Americans. So tonight, I'm announcing that the Department of Labor is developing an emergency rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated.
But the OSHA mandate was constitutionally dubious, not to mention very illegal. And the Supreme Court ultimately ruled that the Department of Labor didn't have the authority to force employers to implement a policy, and it never went into effect. Biden's anger had nothing to do with protecting the vaccinated. The reality is that Joe Biden promised to crush the virus, and when that didn't work, he decided to violate the Constitution. And speaking of Joe Biden's willful ignorance of the Constitution, he will say anything to demonize law-abiding firearm owners by saying the most absurd bullshit.
But from the very beginning, the Second Amendment didn't say you can own any gun you want, as big as you want. You couldn't buy a cannon when, in fact, the Second Amendment passed. What purpose is to have a gun that a bullet can travel 5 times the speed of an ordinary bullet? Do you realize the bullet out of an AR-15 travels 5 times as rapidly as a bullet shot out of any other gun?
Huh, I didn't realize that. Oh, right, because it's not true.
My legislation says there can be no more than 8 bullets in a round, okay? Who in God's name needs a weapon with 100 rounds in a chamber?
Of course, all of that is nonsense. But number 18 on the list is the most ridiculous thing Joe Biden has ever said about the issue.
It made it harder for people to buy stabilized braces. Put a pistol on a brace, it turns into a gun. Makes it more, you can have a higher caliber weapon, a higher caliber bullet coming out of that gun. It's essentially turning it into a short barrel rifle.
So according to Joe Biden, weapons expert, if you take a stabilized brace, whatever the hell that is, and put it on a pistol, it not only turns that pistol into a gun, but it magically changes what caliber bullet it uses. Makes sense to me. What's your problem?
I'm a Second Amendment guy. I have 2 shotguns. My sons have shotguns.
I should note that one of those sons died in 2015, and the other is currently facing felony gun charges. Anyway, number 17 on our list is when Joe Second Enema Biden all over the founding fathers.
Those who say the blood of patriots, you know, and all this stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not water with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you wanted to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons.
A, he's misquoting Thomas Jefferson. I know you're shocked. And B, it sounds like Joe Biden is threatening law-abiding American citizens with F-15s and nukes. Nothing to see here, guys.
And for those brave right-wing Americans who say it's all about keeping America's independent and safe, if you want to fight against the country, you need an F-15. You need something a little more than a gun. No, I'm not joking. Think about this. Think about the rationale we use.
So Joe Biden claims that if you want to successfully fight against the government, you're going to need more than guns. But at the same time, Biden and the Democrats have been claiming for nearly 3 years that when a bunch of unarmed protesters went to the Capitol on January 6th, that it was an insurrection that almost brought American democracy to the brink. Got it.
You need F-15s and nuclear weapons.
Number 16 on the list is more than a little concerning.
I took it to instill public confidence in the vaccine. President-elect Harris took hers today for the same reason. Now, when President Harris and I took a virtual tour of a vaccination center in Arizona.
Last week, President Harris and I stood in the United States Capitol.
And that's why I asked President Harris to travel to the region last August. But all kidding aside, of course, President Harris is a proud Howard alum. I'm not being facetious. Well, President Harris led this effort.
President Harris.
During his presidential campaign, Joe Biden tweeted the following: "Trump deflects legitimate questions with attacks. He bullies members of the press instead of taking responsibility for his failures." And yet, ironically, Joe Biden routinely deflects legitimate questions with attacks.
You all are not the happiest people in the world. What's your report? And I mean it sincerely. You turn on the television, the only way you're going to get a hit is if there's something negative. You don't understand that, you're in the wrong business. That is an interesting reading of English. I assume you got into journalism because you like to write. Read the polls, Jack. You guys are all the same. Well, that's not true. You're saying things you do not know what you're talking about. No one said that. Who said that?
Don't
Who
you
said
think
that?
What do you do over there?
I knew you'd have a lousy question. No, I didn't say that. Look what I said. Go back and read what I said.
Take a look. Start reporting it the right way.
And coming in at number 15 is the most infamous of those insults, when Peter Doocy from Fox News asked Biden a question about the economy.
Do you think you play through the political liability?
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
So instead of answering an objectively legitimate question, Joe Biden bullied a reporter and deflected with an attack. But Biden's like, "Don't look at me, look at the bad orange man."
What a stupid son of a bitch.
Number 14 happened back in 2022 when Biden dropped by a meeting about offshore wind turbines. While there, Biden pulled out a card to refer to some talking points. And photographer Jim Watson captured images showing that Joe Biden was given very specific instructions. You enter the Roosevelt Room and say hello to participants. You take your seat. You give brief comments. And notice that "you" is capitalized and in bold, just in case Joe Biden thinks the card was for somebody else. Other instructions included: you ask a question, you thank participants, and you depart. Again, you cannot convince me that Joe Biden is absolutely in charge of the country. And if you needed even more proof, take a look at number 13, when Joe Biden started speaking to a reporter in the crowd about Afghanistan, and a very special guest magically appeared to whisk him away.
Pakistan should not, and Afghanistan should be people.
I just can't understand why our adversaries don't respect us anymore. Now, if you watch Joe Biden events, and why would you, you'd know that with every speech, and I mean every single speech, Joe Biden will mangle someone's name.
Brian Shantz, our senator. Congress Auchincloss, where is she? There you go, Jake. Natalie Bergone. Natalie, where's Nanette? Where's Nanette? There you are. Sorry, Nanette. I didn't see you back there. Leaders in civil rights like Karen Nagasaki and Earl, excuse me. I know. I also want to acknowledge the gentle lady from Georgia, Lucy Macbeth. The contribution of Joan Shigakawa. Thank you. I have trouble pronouncing it. You can call me Bidden.
And that last one was Asian American producer Joan Shigakawa. And number 12 on the list is when Joe Biden attempted to pronounce her name a second time.
And Joan Shingang, I'm going to pronounce it, Shanga Kawawa. I think I pronounced it correctly.
Number 11 occurred back in September 28th, 2022, when Biden spoke at a conference on hunger, nutrition, and health. And as presidents are wont to do, Biden acknowledged members of Congress attending the event.
I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here to help make this a reality.
Okay, so Jackie would be former Representative Jackie Walorski. And I say former because unfortunately, she died in a car crash back on August 3rd, a whole month and a half before the conference. And you'd think that Joe Biden would know this as he put out a statement regarding her death saying, "Jill and I are shocked and saddened by the death of Congresswoman Jackie Walorski of Indiana." He's so shocked and saddened that he forgot she died.
Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here.
So historical figure and White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre came up with the most ridiculous excuse, and the White House press corps wasn't buying it.
So, of course, she was on his mind. She was of top of mind. She was on top of mind. I mean, I think many people can speak to sometimes when you have someone top of mind, they're a top of mind, exactly that. And she was a top of mind. She was on top of mind. I don't think it's all that unusual to have someone top of mind, being on top of mind. And she was on top of mind. Again, she was on the top of mind. I feel like many of us have gone through that particular time where someone is on top of mind and you call them out.
So the Biden administration is so inept that the best excuse that they could come up with was Joe Biden was thinking about the Congresswoman and he called out to her, even though he knew that she had died.
The confusing part is why, if she and the family is top of mind, does the president think that she's living and in the room?
I don't find that confusing. Okay, go ahead.
Just apologize. These moments of confusion are happening with increased frequency.
Go ahead.
Excuse me, there are Americans are watching this and are having concerns. What do you say to that? This is a legitimate question. We need to have some answers.
Woof. When you lose the correspondent from Al Jazeera, it's time to pack it in, guys.
I didn't think she was going to be here.
Number 10 on the list is from September 2023, when Joe Biden flew to Vietnam, and his handlers thought it would be a great idea to hold a press conference, despite the fact that Joe Biden was very obviously suffering from jet lag.
And look, nobody likes having celebrated international meetings if you don't know what you want at the meeting, if you don't have a game plan. He may have a game plan. He just hasn't shared it with me. But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
They don't call him Sleepy Joe for nothing. And this press conference was such a disaster that the highlight was when Joe Biden started rambling about his brother.
And there's my brother loves having, there's famous lines from movies that he always quotes, you know, and one of them is there's a movie about John Wayne, he's an Indian scout, and they're trying to get I think it was the Apache, one of the great tribes of America, back on the reservation. And he's standing with the Union, so they're all on their horses and their saddles, and there's 3 or 4 Indians in headdresses, and the Union soldiers. And the Union soldiers basically saying to the Indians, "Come with me, we'll take care of you, everything will be good." And the Indian looks at John Wayne and points to the Union soldier and says, "He's a lion, dog-faced pony soldier."
And this left the president's staff with no choice. Biden's press secretary got on the mic and pulled the plug.
Had access to change it, had access. It wasn't confrontational at all.
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've raised it with every person I met with.
Mr. President, are you worried about your son being indicted, Mr. President?
81 million votes, guys. 81 million votes. Number 9 on the list is about a double standard. Back in August 2022, President Donald Trump's home in Florida was raided by the FBI to retrieve classified documents that were allegedly in Trump's possession illegally. And a month later, in an interview with 60 Minutes, Joe Biden was asked to comment on the situation.
When you saw the photograph of the top secret documents laid out on the floor at Mar-a-Lago, what did you think to yourself, looking at that image?
How that could possibly happen. How anyone could be that irresponsible.
And yet, just 1.5 months later, Joe Biden's personal attorneys would find classified documents dating back to his vice presidency in a closet at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement, whatever the hell that is. And then a second batch would be found in the garage in Joe Biden's home.
Classified material next to your Corvette? What were you thinking?
I'm going to get a chance to speak on all this, God willing, soon. But as I said earlier this week, people, and by the way, my Corvette's in a locked garage, okay? So it's not like you're sitting out in the street.
So
but anyway,
was in a locked garage.
Yes, as well as my Corvette.
And that right there shows that Joe Biden thinks that he's above the law. Biden weaponized Attorney General Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice to go after Trump over classified documents when Biden himself improperly stored and mishandled classified documents. Of course, it all backfired. It not only added fuel to the argument of a two-tier justice system, but it's also inadvertently made Trump more popular than ever. Womp womp. Number 8 on the list is when Joe Biden's staff thought of the brilliant idea of naming his failing economic policies after a failing resident.
Most Americans are a $400 unexpected expense away from bankruptcy.
That's Bidenomics in action. You think I'm kidding? But when you when you increase the middle class, the poor have a shot and the wealthy still do very well. That's what we call Bidenomics.
But everyone knows that Bidenomics is a joke, especially his most repeated claim that he's the greatest job creator ever.
By the way, so far, we've created 14 million new jobs, more jobs in 3 years than any president's created in 4 years.
But Joe Biden's attempt to gaslight Americans into thinking that he's created 14 million brand new jobs isn't working. Between March and April of 2020, nearly 22 million jobs were lost. Between May 2020 and January 2021, 12.5 million of those jobs were recovered. What this means is that under Joe Biden, an additional 9.4 million jobs would need to be created before reaching the break-even point. But for Democrats, math is hard, because the reality is it took 17 months for the Biden administration to hit that break-even point. Everything from July 2022 to November 2023 are new jobs. So for clarity, under Joe Biden, there have been 4.7 million new jobs in his first 2 years and 10 months in office. And don't get me wrong, 4.7 million new jobs isn't bad. But it needs to be pointed out that 6.7 million new jobs were created under President Trump during his first 2 years and 10 months, which is 2 million more new jobs than were created under Joe Biden. So when people say that they felt the economy was better under President Trump, it's because it was. In fact, when Joe Biden entered office, inflation was at 1.4% annually. By June 2021, it had rose to 5.4%. But Joe Biden wasn't worried, which is number 7 on our list.
And by the way, talk of inflation. The overwhelming consensus is going to pop up a little bit and then go back down. No one's talking about this great, So again, if it turns out that what I've done so far, what we've done so far, is a mistake, it's going to show. The vast majority of the experts, including Wall Street, are suggesting that it's highly unlikely that it's going to be long-term inflation that's going to get out of hand. We will, in fact, reduce inflation.
But unfortunately, Biden and the experts were way off. By October 2021, inflation had risen to 6.2% annually.
You had told us at a town hall, I think it was in July, that this was just near-term inflation. The Wall Street Journal recently talked to like 67 financial experts who said that they saw high inflation going all the way or deep into 2022. Do you think it's going to last for a while?
I don't think so. I don't think it will last depending what we do. If we stay exactly where we are, yes. If we don't make these investments, yes.
But despite all of these investments, inflation continued deep into 2022 and 2023, rising to a 41-year high of 9.1%. And yet, Joe Biden and his administration are baffled as to why a majority of Americans disapprove of Joe Biden's handling of the economy. Gee, what could it be?
It's no accident. It's Bidenomics in action.
Next, back in October 2021, professional race car driver Brandon Brown won the NASCAR Infiniti Series Sparks 300. And during a post-race interview, the crowd was chanting, "F Joe Biden." But NBC sports reporter Kelly Stavist said that they were saying something else.
Brandon, you also told me, as you can hear the chants from the crowd, "Let's go, Brandon." Brandon, you told me you were going to
And with that, "Let's Go Brandon" was born.
Across this country, we've seen this new phenomenon lately, chanted at sporting events and on signs. The phrase is "Let's go Brandon," a sort of code for a profane slogan attacking President Biden. What does the president make of that?
I don't think he spends much time focused on it or thinking about it.
And that's a shame, because number 6 on the list is when Joe Biden and his wife, Dr. First Lady, were taking phone calls for NORAD's Santa Tracker hotline.
I hope you have a wonderful Christmas.
Well, yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas as well. Merry Christmas, and let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon. I agree.
I still can't believe that he said it. What a moron. And what makes this even more special is Dr. Joe Biden's priceless reaction.
Hey, by the way, where are you in Oregon? Where's your home? I think we lost him.
Yeah.
Let's go, Brandon. I agree.
In his Netflix special called Beautiful Dogs, comedian Shane Gillis made an astute observation.
Anytime Biden finishes a speech, he transforms into a Roomba.
And thanks to the brilliance of Mr. Gillis, And America and the entire world now has a name for Biden's confusion. So in celebration of Mr. Gillis's brilliance, number 5 on the list is a montage.
Thank you.
Now, the only thing worse than Joe Biden looking confused on stage is Joe Biden tripping and falling on stage. And since Joe Biden took office, he has tripped and/or fallen in public 10 times. Here's only some of those examples.
No matter what their cost, 2, 10, 12, 15. Oops, stepping on it's black. Anyway.
And I'm not even counting the time he fell off his bicycle. And it's gotten so concerning that back in September, Axios reported that Biden's team is making him wear sneakers and forcing him to use the short stairs on Air Force One because they're afraid he's going to trip and fall again. And just hours after the Axios piece was published, Biden tripped on the short stairs. And then 2 weeks later, the resident visited Pennsylvania, where he sporadically half-jogged to the stage, and you'll never guess what happened.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Democrats, including some in the administration, are terrified that Biden will have a bad fall, with a nightmare scenario of it happening in the weeks before the November 2024 election. Unfortunately, I think it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Sad, really. Next, at number 3, is easily the biggest foreign policy meltdown in our nation's history: the chaotic withdrawal of United States troops from Afghanistan, where, thanks to this bumbling idiot, 13 service members lost their lives. And during their dignified transfer event at Dover Air Force Base, this happened. Joe Biden is more worried about ice cream time than paying his respects to the fallen.
In reference to the checking of his watch, that didn't happen just once. That happened on every single one that came out of that airplane. It happened on every single one of them. They would release the salute, and he'd look down at his watch on every last one, all 13. He looked down at his watch.
I actually leaned into my son's mother's ear and I said, I swear to God, if he checks his watch one more time, and that was only probably 4 times in, I couldn't look at him anymore after that. Just considering especially the time and why we were there, it was I found to be the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen.
These 13 service members, who are heroes by the way, were killed because of Joe Biden's incompetence as commander-in-chief. And during their dignified transfer, he acted like an impatient child. I beg of you to keep all of that in mind when you cast your ballot in 2024. He cannot be allowed another 4 years as our commander-in-chief. On August 8th, 2023, wildfires ripped through the island of Maui, where at least 100 people lost their lives. It was the 5th deadliest wildfire in United States history. And coming in at number 2 is Joe Biden's atrocious response. No, you're riding a bicycle, dumbass. Now, when you consider how catastrophic the fire was, Biden's no comment response, along with images of Biden riding his bike and lounging on the beach, well, it made him look like he couldn't give a shit. In fact, it took 13 days for Joe Biden to get up off his ass and fly to Maui. But when he did, he made it about himself.
The devastation is overwhelming. To date, 114 dead, hundreds of people unaccounted for. I remember when I got the call, my first wife and daughter, "You got to come home. There's been an accident." I said, "What happened?" He said, "Your wife, she's dead. Come home, come home." The tractor trailer had broadsided her and killed her in a car accident along with my little daughter.
So even though a deadly wildfire and a car accident aren't remotely the same, Joe Biden just can't help himself.
Many of you have lost family. Not even sure where some are. I've had a similar experience. Tractor trailer had broadsided my wife Christmas shopping with my 3 children. She was killed. My baby was killed.
And if that wasn't enough, Biden decided to tell the tale of the kitchen fire that he had back in 2004.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but I'm going to compare difficulties.
15 years ago, I was in Washington doing Meet the Press. It was a sunny Sunday, and lightning struck at home.
According to reporting at the time, it was a relatively small house fire where firefighters were able to keep the flames from spreading beyond the kitchen. The Cranston Heights Fire Company chief said, "Luckily, we got it pretty early. The fire was under control in 20 minutes.
And we were insured. We did not have any problem.
So don't worry, everything turned out great for us. For you Hawaiians, we're going to send you $700. Go knock yourself out."
To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat. But all kidding aside,
I know many of you have lost everything, but let me tell you about a tragedy and how I lost my Corvette and my cat almost. But all kidding aside, number 1 on the list is when Joe Biden gave the now infamous speech, "The Continued Battle for the Soul of the Nation," the most inflammatory and divisive speech ever delivered by a sitting U.S. president.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans are a clear and present danger to our democracy.
So in a primetime address, Joe Biden decided to call half the country a threat to America, which is a far cry from the promise that he made during his inauguration.
We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury.
However, unity quickly gave way to my way or the highway. Don't want to fund a war in Ukraine? You're a Putin lover. Don't want an open border? You must be a racist. Don't want to take an experimental shot? You're anti-science. And if you're against Joe Biden, then you're a threat to democracy.
But while the threat to American democracy is real, we must be stronger, more determined, and more committed to saving American democracy than MAGA Republicans are to destroying American democracy. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. MAGA Republicans. Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans. MAGA Republicans. MAGA Republicans. MAGA Republicans. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards.
But all of this rhetoric gloriously backfired on Joe Biden. Because despite all of the talk of saving democracy, this singular image of Joe Biden, standing in front of a blood-soaked hellscape background, shouting, fists in air, and flanked by Marines, screamed fascism.
American democracy only works in a democracy. Democracy itself. The assault on American democracy. Threat to American democracy is real. Democracy. American democracy is guaranteed. Democracy. Defending our democracy is fatal to democracy. That will secure our democracy.
I love democracy.
democracy. Our democracy isn't perfect. This is a democracy. It always has been our democracy. We preserve democracy. Democracy and that democracy. Democracy to saving American democracy. 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 A democracy is not normal. God bless you all. Democracy.
But of course, Joe Biden doesn't actually believe in democracy, because when he was asked about Donald Trump being removed from the ballot in Colorado, democracy went right out the window.
Trump an insurrectionist, sir?
Well, I think certainly it's self-evident.
Trump isn't an insurrectionist, because otherwise, Donald Trump would have been charged with insurrection by Biden's corrupt DOJ. And remember that the section in the 14th Amendment pertaining to insurrection or rebellion does not apply to the president or vice president.
You saw it all. Now, whether the 14th Amendment applies, I'll let the court make that decision. But he certainly supported an insurrection. And no question about it. None. Zero.
But according to Joe Biden's past statements, it couldn't have been a legitimate insurrection, because I was told that you need F-15s and nukes to take down the government. But Joe Biden, a self-described constitutional scholar, willfully ignores the fact that the 14th Amendment says that no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So in the case of Trump being removed from the Colorado ballot, that means you can't declare without due process that Trump is disqualified from holding public office for insurrection when he has not been found guilty of insurrection, let alone charged with it. And Joe Biden could be on the right side of history here and come out against the ruling, but he won't, because he only believes in the Constitution when it benefits Democrats.
This is a nation that honors our Constitution. We do not reject it. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution.
And that's it! We made it to the end of the countdown. I hope it was informative and entertaining. A special thanks to Poofy for her help with the script. Follow me on X at Don't Walk Run, and be sure that you're still subscribed to the channel. As always, I hope to see you next time, if there is a next time.